like I will have it as a goal. Today, I will make a sandwich and eat it. And like, just doesn't happen.
You got like a bite or two in. It's like that's all I could do for today. That was it.
No, I'll start, and then like 10 p.m. I'm like, oh, there's two stale pieces of bread on the counter here. Like, oh, I should have got to clean that up now.
You didn't even put the sandwich together. That's hilarious. Uh, I'm gonna do like an introduction. Um, Wanted to not give too much away about who you are, your family, and kind of start with this, what I know about you. You're a university professor, married, two kids, two beautiful daughters. Um, and you're, like I was saying before, you're probably one of the most involved fathers that I know of. I see you all the time, with your kids, and even just hanging around. Like, I don't really understand how you have so much energy and so much to give. I feel like I mean, I'm not there every day, but I feel like you never have a bad day with your kids, or like, handling them. So I'm really in awe of how you father and the way you teach your kids. So I'm happy to have you on the first episode of this podcast. So thank you.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And your name is Seth. I forgot to mention
Yes.
your Seth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if you could tell us a little bit about like what when did you first realize you were going to be a father? What was that? Was that like, was it planned? Was it unplanned? Was it something that you were thinking about?
Well, I mean, there was a positive pregnancy test. That was the first big one.
That was the chance.
Yeah, that was a pretty powerful sign. I don't know, we decided to have our first, and then we tried for like 2 years, and then tried some, what was it called? I want to say IUI, but there have been so many acronyms recently, I don't remember which one that is. Anyway, the first time we tried a fertility treatment, it worked, and then the second one just kind of showed up. Uh,
I hear that happens a lot, actually. Like, you do it once and then like, oh, it's the eggs are loose or whatever, and like it just happens like easier
I
than
mean,
time around.
that is the science, yeah. I don't know. I guess I got a lot of love to give, and wanted to have some kids and give it to them, I suppose.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. So you kind of like always saw yourself as a father with all that love to give? Was that accurate?
No, I I'm one of the worst people to ask about how did I plan things, because I really don't plan things more than like a month or two out in advance. But like, just, you know, I knew it was going to be insanely hard, and a absolutely colossal amount of work. Like, I didn't go into it thinking like, oh, we'll just kind of, we'll go on about our lives and then we'll just kind of attach a baby to it. I kind of knew in advance that this was just going to steamroller over everything,
Yeah.
and I think maybe that was a good place to start. But I wanted to do it anyway. So
Yeah. That's kind of what it is. Like, you know that it's going to happen, and it'll change everything in a really momentous way. But like, you want to do it. You decide to do it. It's like for me, it was kind of like a yearning. Like, I always felt that I wanted to be a father. I don't know what possessed me, but I was kind of like knew it was I wanted to do it. Maybe it was like a life goal. Like, I felt like if I wasn't a father, then maybe I wouldn't feel like I've done everything I wanted to do in life for some reason.
I see that.
I don't know why. Um, so can you share some of the like hardships of the early days when you just started being a father? Even for, I know it's two of them,
Oh,
they're kind of like separated by a couple of years, but like, yeah, what are some of the
uh,
challenges you faced early on?
16 months. They were really they were a 1-2 punch. The
Yeah, pretty good.
the 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 fourth trimester, the first 3 months, you know, no offense to children, but they really don't have a personality at the time. They're just, your job is to basically be the umbilical cord, and good lord, they're a lot of work. They just they're fine or they're screaming. And if they're screaming, you just kind of you work the algorithm. Is it gas? Are they hungry? Are they tired? Is it a diaper thing? And you just kind of you work the algorithm, and then they stop screaming, and then you go back trying to catch up on sleep, and then you just kind of do that 24/7 for months. And now I kind of, other than the algorithm, I don't remember that first 3 months.
Yeah, yeah. That's a very interesting thing. I think because the our two are 3 years apart, and because of that, like starting over second time, it's like, oh, I totally forgot about this like not sleeping thing. Like this is I totally forgot about this. I totally
Yeah,
forgot about changing diapers. I totally forgot about like all these small, minute things. And it's like, was our memory wiped or something? Like I don't know how these
yeah,
super important things are like totally just like out of our minds.
I hear that. I hear that a lot from other parents, that like, yeah, that those first, it must be an evolutionary thing. Like we have to forget, or we would never be tricked into
Doing it again.
completely replacing it.
Yeah, it's like some kind of like trauma response or something.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, I do feel like those first 3 months are like very, very difficult. I would, maybe not too boldly, but kind of consider it maybe a form of like trauma because you're going through a lot, you're doing a lot. Um, the lack of sleep, that's like a killer, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Far more than the years since. It really does feel just kind of like running a marathon. Like you just like it's not complicated. It's not that hard, but it's just a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And your brain, like, I think that's when I kind of learned a lot about like how your brain functions without sleep. Because when I was in college and you would do like all nighters or like maybe you'll do like 2 night stints and it's like you kind of feel like you see the end of the tunnel. Like I know it's just gonna be, I'm gonna cram and then do the exam. It's gonna be over and I can sleep for like 3, 4 days and it'll be fine. Like this is totally,
Yeah,
totally different. It's like there's no like there's supposed to be end in sight, but you don't really know that when it's gonna happen. And for some people, it doesn't happen for a long time. Like
yeah,
I know parents who just have kids who just don't sleep, and even like as they get older, it's not happening for them, and they got to figure it out.
yeah, yeah. No, I've got yeah. I mean, the two kids I've got are wildly different on that front. The meanest thing the pediatrician ever told us, didn't tell us a lot of mean things, but at one point the pediatrician told us, you should be putting your kid down at 6:30. It was like, great, now we got a schedule. 6:30, we put the kid down. And good Lord, it's just a running firefight from 6:30 to 9 every night for like 6 months, just like desperately trying to get her to go to sleep starting at 6:30. And then she'd just kind of drop off at 9 p.m. And so now, fine, 9 p.m. is the bedtime. Like it's still 9 p.m. If we try anything to try to get her to go to bed earlier, it just absolutely doesn't happen. Uh,
I think it's super early. And that's really hard to do.
yeah, yeah. I don't mean trick they played on.
I wouldn't recommend it, but I agree. I think they kind of form their own flow, and
Yeah.
then you kind of like have to figure it out and like go from there. Yeah.
Well, that is the big difference. Like you were asking earlier, like what is an overarching philosophy, and like the idea that it sounds grim, it sounds so incredibly depressing, but just living in the fact that there isn't a light at the end of the tunnel. Like they're going to have a horrible time sleeping into the indefinite future. Like it's going to be a colossal amount of work no matter what. Like if like on the weekends, I used to like with like making a sandwich or sending an email. Like I used to think like, all right, I'll just I'll be watching the kids, and I'll just send a couple of emails, and it doesn't happen. I mean, the phone is in my pocket. I could just take it out, and like just being interrupted every 5 to 10 seconds, and just the amount of work that goes into it. If you then add on to that, like I'm also trying to get something important done, you're going to be you're going to be anxious and frustrated, and you're going to be mad at your kids from preventing you from doing the important thing. So, you just kind of give up on doing the important thing and just kind of acknowledge that, like, this is all I'm doing today. And as long as the kids are around, that's what I'm doing. And there is no end in sight. There's a lot of joy involved, but don't think you're getting out.
That is actually really, really important. Like, just, especially I think like in the transition from like before, like, I guess BC, before kids, and then like once you have kids, it's like
Well, like that.
you important things, you make a giant list, you're like hitting all the check marks, and you feel good about the stuff that you're doing, but like once you have them, it's so much attention needed to like you to pay them. And even something very, very simple, like you're saying, like maybe it's 4 clicks, you think about the email, you type it in, it's going to take you like 2 minutes to do, but like taking your mind off of the thing you're doing back to your kids, and then you have to like, what was I doing? What was I saying? Did I open that? Did I already write? And then like you
Yeah.
lose that focus. You have to go back to the kids. It's just
Oh
insane.
yeah.
Just
And God forbid you need to look up something in another email.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's chaos. It's chaotic in the mind. I think you're 100% correct if you just leave that alone. Like, I'm not gonna do anything that requires a lot of focus, a lot of attention. The kids are the main thing, and then like maybe, just maybe, if I get some time to like put them down, or somebody else is able to, you know, take their attention away, maybe I can get it done.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I feel like I have a bit of ADD because I'll have the email to do, and then I look around like, oh, I left all this crumbs all over the place. Like, I gotta clean this up. Like, oh, look at the
Yeah.
dishes I have, and then like whatever he was doing ended, and I didn't get to do the thing I was intending on doing. But maybe you get the chance to do it. But just removing that like thought of like, I'm gonna hit all the check marks, then you feel a lot better about the process, because it's gonna
Yeah.
suck the joy out of like hitting doing the things you used to do. This is not gonna happen.
Yeah. No, I'm very, very upfront with my students. They're like, Professor, did you get a chance to grade this thing or look over that paper? I'm like, no, no, there are two of them. There are two of them at home. Like, when I leave campus today, I'm gone. There's nothing else. There's nothing else happening until I come back to the office tomorrow.
Yes, yes, that's very true. I feel that all the time. And speaking of two, I think I was speaking with a mom that my wife and I recently met, and I think she has one, and she was kind of saying that like I was reaching out to another parent to kind of like set a play date, and they never got back to me. I was like, yeah, but they have two. Like they and like I thought, for me, like I thought that like when I had the one, my son, I kind of had this revelation that like, oh, when I was younger and I was going to college and I was doing all the stuff and doing all this like entrepreneurial stuff, I thought I was busy. I thought that I couldn't find time to hang out with my friends. I thought that like, oh, like I'm busy. But now that I have the one, I had no idea what busy was. Like, this is far and beyond busy. And then I got another one, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
Like, if somebody sends me a message, they'll be lucky if I see it. Like, it's yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Like so much of my life is not even. I don't even plan things so much. I just kind of like set things up so that when things inevitably fall apart and fail, they'll do so in a way that's okay. Like uh, 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 like it would be incredibly easy to give them junk food, and like because you just throw the bag at them and then they're off and running. So just it's not the beautiful thing about COVID is that now there's all these grocery delivery services. So just fill it up with vegetables, fill it up with, juice and milk, put that in the refrigerator, and then, when they're hungry, just throw an apple into the wood chipper sort of thing. And it's actually been pretty great for me because, I don't have time to feed myself and they don't eat all the food that I throw at them. So I just end up eating whatever they don't.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's what I mean by like a fail safe. Like I know for a fact I'm not going to successfully feed myself, but in the detritus that they leave behind, there's usually, you know, apple slices and bananas and whatnot.
That's actually, I like that. That makes a lot of sense. Because I do eat a lot of like my son's leftovers.
Mhm.
Because like I give him a bunch of food and he'll like pick through it, and it's like all the time I took to make all this, and I barely got to eat today. I'm not gonna throw this away. This has to,
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah,
you know, the idea of like, well, if they eat healthy, technically I eat healthy as well. It's a really good failsafe. I
yeah,
like,
exactly.
yeah, that's really good. Um, I'm gonna get back to that because one of the things that I saw was the way you get your kids to eat, and want to kind of get back to that a little bit later on. But that's a really good failsafe. So I also wanted to kind of talk a little about your father. Like, how was it? I guess you're a father, but you were also fathered, right?
Sure. No, I come from a long line of fathers. Yeah.
That's that's good. That's good. Yeah.
Mhm.
So how would you describe your father, and how would you describe your relationship with your father?
Um, well, I guess the apple didn't fall too far from the tree. He's a physics professor.
Really?
Um, yeah, yeah. And I don't know. He was pretty old when I came along. Like my parents were my older brother is about a little over 12 years older than I am. Uh, and so by the time I came along, my parents were surprised and a bit older. So they didn't, there wasn't a lot of like chasing around and that sort of thing. They're much lower energy parents sort of thing. Um, but big thing, the big thing that my father did for me that I get the sense that a lot of people's fathers don't do for them was he would just kind of sit and just kind of talk to me about the world and just kind of talk about how things work and just kind of very matter of fact and not braggadociously but just kind of like I would ask questions about I don't know everything and he would just kind of sometimes he'd think about it and sometimes he'd be like what I have to get back to you on that sort of thing and just kind of a lot of conversationalness and there wasn't a lot of I don't know not a lot of like fantasy and storytelling and that sort of thing but just yeah anyway so that is with it
Like very grounded.
yeah very grounded um I get the sense that I get the sense that my brother was a lot harder on them than I was. So we were basically two only children, and they were just kind of waiting for me to do whatever it was that he did last time. Um, uh, yeah, I actually got along with him. I get along with him. I get along with my father better and better uh, the older I've gotten. Uh, the more that we can be on kind of level. I don't get the sense that I don't want to be unfair. I don't get the sense that either of my parents really kind of got childhood, like the weirdness of it, the silliness of it. It's kind of I don't know the you kind of have to be able to think that it's funny when things catch on fire or break or get absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
There is there's a certain amount of grim humor of like this really screws me over. That's pretty funny. Um,
I think that takes a special kind of person, and maybe that's one of the things I admire about the way that you father. I see like things happen, you're just like, oh, well, here we go. I do see that with you.
it's very much, I don't know. My philosophy is, if it doesn't, well, firstly, make sure they don't die. I remember the first pediatrician appointment we went to. Like, I've got just this tiny little bundle, and the pediatrician is like, "So, any questions?" I'm like, um, "How do we make sure she doesn't just die?" It's like nobody's asked that. I'm like, "Really?" Because it's kind of the top list.
It's number one. It's
Yeah.
number one on the charts. It really is.
So it's I don't know. So to that end, a lot of fruits and vegetables. Go outside a lot. Um, just put the fear of God into them about traffic. If we're going to cross the street, hold my hands, because if anything's going to get them, it's going to be a car. And then everything else, it's kind of fine. Um, if they fall down, they're fine. If they run into something, they're fine. I mean, it's I was I was really, really worried all the time during the phase where, like, you have to hold their head up. Like,
Yeah.
I was just kind of continuously conscious of, like, they're fine here, but if I'm not supporting their head, they're gone. And that was just horrible. And then once they were kind of tottering around and they had their head up, they're fine.
You're the first one especially, where there's all these like cautionary tales about things to do and things not to do. I always remembered like cavemen did this. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like this happened before there was science, doctors,
Yeah.
before there were civilizations. And if the baby ate some dirt, like it should be okay. Like I think
Yeah.
right.
You you hit the nail exactly. I've had exactly the same thought. Like, these babies are born in igloos, in the middle of the desert, in the middle of the jungle, in New York City, for God's sake. I mean, they're fine. They are infinitely adaptable. They can deal with it. They can figure it out, and just I don't know.
Yeah, sure, for sure. But it sounds like I see a lot of like some similarities. This is my first interview kind of asking questions about people's parents, and I've because for me, I've learned things from my parents because they do it, but I've also learned things from my parents because they didn't do it. And that's interesting to learn that's something that happens to other humans. It's a weird thing to
Yeah,
say, but I guess I wasn't aware of that. But yeah, so it sounds like you learned to be a little bit more open to the chaos of it because your parents weren't as adaptable. Was that?
yeah. Well, yeah. I was an only child with fairly old parents who were had their house very nice. They had their art on the wall. There wasn't a lot of, like, it was like most of my toys were kind of like, oh, your brother played with these back in the 70s. So there was a lot of, like, very old Legos and vinyl. And, like, when I saw the toys that other kids were playing with, I'm like, they've invented that. I was so I was yeah. So like, one of there's a lot of very much in the same boat. Like, very much like going back when I was raising my kids, going back in my head, like, well, what did they do? What was a good idea? What worked? What definitely didn't work? And so, like, not that they're unkind, but they weren't overly affectionate. Like, love is, as you can see, I am providing for you and doing what is in your best interest, and as such, you will appreciate this as you age, and that sort of thing. And I think my kids do a lot more just kiss storms and hugs, and chasing them around and that sort of thing. And to answer your question, how do I have the energy? I just drop at the end of the day. My knees hurt.
Listen, I think it was the Halloween. We had a Halloween celebration at that we some of the folks at the school we all went to, and then some folks left early, and you were playing with some of the kids, including my son AJ, on the rocks, and I saw you jumping and chasing him around, and I didn't know you could move so well because I was like, wow, he's really running. He's really like jumping and like, and I'm not doing all that. Like I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not doing the jumping. Like I'll run, but the jumping and I used to play basketball. I hurt my knee. Like I'm not. And I
Yeah,
was really amazed. I was really amazed, like the amount of energy you put behind it. Um,
both of my girls are now, they're very sweet. They keep being like, "Daddy, could you pick me up?" And I'm like, I've got some kind of a rotator cuff thing going on now. Like,
I think
there's
I
a price to
do.
there's a price to pay. And like I'm very much like, I don't know. I feel like this is the time it counts. They're not going to want me to chase them around when they're teenagers. So like, it literally is just like a big physical push for now, and then I will just convalesce and recover and hopefully heal. Like both of my kids have been very very nice about it. Like the little one will be like, "Daddy, could you pick me up?" And the older one will be like, "His shoulder really hurts. You have to be easy on his shoulder." I'm like,
Well, that's
"Thank
nice.
you, exactly."
Very. Oh my gosh. I can only hope for that in the future. That's really nice. That's awesome. It reminds me of I don't know if you know too much about Kobe Bryant before he passed. Uh he had a whole his basketball name was like the Black Mamba. Like that's his, he has like the game face and he's a Black Mamba. And after he retired, he had this like Black Mamba movement going. This thing called the Mamba mentality. And it was really about like entrepreneurialism and zeroing on the thing that you want to and having that like deadlock for like getting things done.
Sure.
um he I saw him, he did an interview a while ago, and he was saying that he uses the mama mentality and everything, including being a father. And he would say like, when I go out, because he's, as a basketball player, an NBA Hall of Famer, Olympic winning
Yeah, yeah.
athlete. He's like, I dedicate so much of my time to like basketball and being away. Like I'm away from my family. I only see them maybe 2 months out of the year. So when I'm home, like I use my mentality and I give my family every ounce that I have. Like, like I'll play a basketball game with a high fever or a sprained knee. So if I go home and my kids want to run around and have me lift them up, and I can give them the same amount of energy that I give my career, my being an athlete. And I always looked at that like, wow, that's a really amazing way to think about it. I mean, the situation might be a little bit drastic that he doesn't see them very often, but yeah, I totally agree that you only have a window of time to like make that impact on them, and it's important
Right.
to give them all of what you can.
Yeah.
So
I want them to grow up with the illusion that that was not literally physically painful.
until they try it, right? Until it's their turn and they try to do it.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I mean, having kids, every few months something else will come up, and I'll be like, "Oh God, I remember doing that," and I'll literally call up my parents and apologize. My girls will be like climbing up in a tree, and I'll be literally standing under them, holding my hands up as high as I can, and it'll occur to me like, if they fall, we're both going to break stuff. Like, there's nothing. It's terrifying, but I feel like if I start yelling at them to get down, they'll think that this is scary. I mean, they're fine. Like they're careful. They're sure-footed. They're going to be fine. But it is terrifying. And I remember my parents saying the exact same thing to me. And I called them up the next day. I'm like, listen, you remember when I kept climbing extra high just to scare you? I'm sorry about that. It was cruel.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But I as you speak of it, I definitely can hear the kinds of values that you're teaching them, even in doing these like scary-ish things.
I suppose that's a good philosophy uh, uh, that I think maybe a little bit different. I see a lot of parents trying to teach their kids with like, I don't know what the word for it, like Pavlovian training, like never do this. It's very much like never do this because I expect that you'll just do it instinctually or accidentally all the time. And so now I want to train you to never do that. And I have to, I remember being 3 or 4 years old, and I remember, you know, like I wasn't less conscious then than I am now. Like I was very much a being in the world, and like I don't know, if somebody told me not to do something, I kind of wanted to know why. And so with with uh, with my girls, it's like I try to live in that. I try to never say because I told you so, because you know who the hell am I? Uh, uh, when you tell your kids to do something, by and large, there should be a good reason for it. And like I don't know, they've learned a lot about germ theory from me bossing them around. Like why do we have to take a bath at night? I'm like, well, because not just it's not just about smelling bad, it's about staying clean. Why do we have to wash our hands? Like so you don't get germs, because you get germs on your face and then they get on your hands and then they'll get on other people. So you gotta wash your hands a bunch. So like so much of what I tell them to do is all about germs. And so now they're not like creeped out about germs. They're just very aware of how germs work.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really important part of parenting as well. I think we kind of like you were saying before, you at age 2 or 3, you're still a being and you still have like curiosity. But I think we kind of a lot of parents don't think how conscious their kids are or how curious they are about things. Like just doing something doesn't make it easier for them to do the thing. But if you give them some kind of explanation that they can kind of like ground the idea on, like, okay, like some similar thing, he's taking a bath and every day like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to take a bath? It's like, well, it's a part of your self-care. You've got to take care of yourself. Just like you have to brush your teeth every day. Just like, you change your clothes, you change your underwear. It's all a part of self-care. And I think it helps to create the foundation for him to like, okay, well, these things are all connected to this thing, and that's why I have to do it. So the reasoning um grounds them. But I think adults, like you were saying before, adults are the same way. Why can't I cross the street when the light's green? Like there's no cars coming. Why can't I go?
Yeah,
And you justify things based on like where you stand in those beliefs, whether they're big or small. But having a reason helps.
yeah,
It helps to even when they're very very small, they need that.
yeah. It also helps like uh, uh, a lot of especially early on, a lot of the things that I was bossing my kids around about were things that I kind of inherited from my own parents, and they'd be like, you gotta, I don't know, some of them, but like, I'll be bossing them around, and they'll be like, well, why do I have to do that? And I'll stop and be like, you know what? No, you're right. That's fine. Never mind.
Really, your parents did
Like,
that? Mine is my total opposite. Like, because I said,
no, my parents didn't do that. I do that.
oh, you do that. Okay. Yeah, like the old school parents. That's not. You live in my house. You eat my food. What do you mean? Why? Yeah, but yeah, that's. I do think that's something that like I've learned that through my wife Courtney for sure. About being more conscious of like explaining, especially when you don't feel like I need to explain this to you. Like, just do it. you know. But yeah, it's important. It's very important. I think it also,
Yeah,
you know, AJ is only 4, but I think in him growing up or them growing up, having that kind of mindset of like being able to make decisions based on like some kind of information. Like just because somebody says to do something doesn't mean I should just do it. I need to understand the reasoning behind it.
yeah, exactly. It is so so much of the things that I do are fail safes or investments in the future. Like explaining why you do this. I think is like exactly like you say. It's going to help them to be able to make decisions in the future. Like just do it because I told you to is not. It's efficient in the moment, but it is not great for them in the future.
Yeah, yeah.
um, and like I don't know, for like you were accusing me of always being in a good mood around my kids. That is definitely not true. But
I don't know how you do it.
well, the answer is I've seen what happens when I'm in a bad mood, and they have burned that habit out of me. If I if I like if I show up and I'm just like short and I'm cross with them, then like they start to spin out and like it just it goes sideways real hard and like a little a little easygoingness and a little cheeriness now could save me 6 hours of screaming, and that's worth it.
Yes, yes. Interesting enough, I see parents who like live, fathers especially, who live in that space of like, I just want them to shut up. I just need them to get in the car right now, and but then the car ride home is it's nothing but yelling and screaming. It's terror, and by the time
Yeah,
they get to wherever they're going, everybody's throat is hoarse and everybody's upset. So yeah, yeah, I definitely see that. You just you just reminded me, not reminded, but like illuminated to me that I kind of have that with AJ when he gets like sad about things. Like this morning, he took a crayon to our dining room table and just like marked the entire thing up. And I got upset with him.
yeah,
I tried not to like yell or anything, but I think the feeling of what I said came across to him, and
yeah,
that was
yeah,
enough to upset him for like a good part of the day. And I had to kind of just I'm like, I'm sorry for upsetting you. I didn't mean to yell at you. And like now I'm being more sincere and trying to be nice. And I think to your credit, if I could have found a way to be a little bit more chill, which I did, but I think maybe there's some depth, a little bit deeper I could have gone in my chillness about the situation.
yeah. I know
Lighthearted.
exactly what you mean. Like this is literally a lesson that I've been learning in the last like few months. Like my older one will get like I'll be bossing them around and telling them what to do, and I'll clearly be a little bit or a lot of bit tense, and like they'll start saying like, "Why are you yelling at me?" I'm like, technically, I'm not yelling at you. I'm just speaking sternly. like like okay, I get it. I'm yelling at them.
Yeah, yeah. Mostly
Consequences
yelling.
the same way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mostly yelling.
Um.
They
And
feel
yeah, I'm very much in the same boat. Like inside, I'm like, get in the car. Like, oh my god, put on your shoes. You are killing me. And like a lot of the time it feels,
that part really. I felt the put on your shoes thing. Yeah,
oh god, the shoes. Like the number of times that I've just been like, I can't like 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 how do you make this fun? Like I'll be like, it's been 30 minutes of just like one shoe is a little bit on and like no progress on the other one, and you're just like, put on your shoes. La, 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 put on like I don't know. I've been part of it is them getting older. Part of them is like as parents, we very much are like the people that they try things out on all the time. Like they are experimenting with us to find out just how much they can torture a human being before they snap. And they don't really do that with other people. Like I remember, like one of the first parent teacher things from the school. The the, the the teacher's like, "Oh, your kid is just so wonderful and so nice and is always helping people out." And I was like, "Really? Like but like, really, this one? Like, are you sure you were on the right schedule? Like, you're talking about my kid is just nice to people. Blew my mind.
Yeah, they're definitely trying things at home and
Yeah,
trying to get away with it, or seeing how far they can go.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I see that. I see that in a lot of different ways. Because when they go out into the world, they're different,
yeah,
or they're a little bit more sneaky. Which is another thing I've seen.
yeah,
It's one or the other.
yeah,
They're a little
yeah.
more sneaky about how they go about doing the things they want to do. So yeah,
So, I mean, being nice to your kids, it's all very fine and good. It's good for their emotional health or whatnot. But I mean, like like the younger one especially just absolutely loses it with fair frequency. And I've learned that like if we're trying to go someplace, like there's a lot of walking around in New York. If we're trying to walk from place to place, and I found through just trial and error, if I want to get from place to place, the just holding her hand and then just keep goading her forward and just keep putting one foot in front of another is by and large a lot slower than just stop completely, kneel down, and just give her a hug for a little while until she can calm down. And then we can stand up and she might actually be skipping, which is like such a time saver.
yeah, yeah. That's something I had to work out as well. But it does a lot of those things. I think takes trial and error in
Yeah.
understanding. I mean, I think even with people with high EQ, which you know, good for them. It still takes time. It takes effort to like where does my child stand with this, or like what would work better for them, or is it a hug? Is it a kiss? Is it a hey, I'm keeping you?
Yeah. There's so much trial and error. I mean, the nice thing is the nice thing is that the nice thing is you don't have to know it or learn it all at once. Like you continuously there's an intellectual arms race
Yes, that's right.
as you figure out tricks to get them to do things, and as they figure out that you're just tricking them into doing things. Like um, uh, 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 it takes us like an hour and a half to get food in them, get their clothes on, and get them out the door in the morning. And like just the shoes, God, the shoes. And then at some point, I was just running through all the permutations, and this is like permutation 1007. And I found that if I took all of my daughter's clothes and laid them out, oriented correctly, in the order that should put them on the couch, so that they were like all like obvious. You could see from the other side of the room, like that's the underwear, that's the shirt, that sort of thing. And then I laid out all of the clothes in order, and then at the end of the clothes, I put a little cup with some chocolate chips in it, and then a big kitchen timer. And I just said, 10 minutes. If you can get all of these clothes on before the timer goes off, those chocolate chips are yours. And she was dressed in 2 minutes. And like, I didn't want to make a big deal about it. I didn't want to be like, this is it. This is a game changer. Like, I didn't, because as soon as you freak out, they're like, oh, this is something I can like dig into. So I was just like, that was wonderful.
The Tiger Woods.
Yeah. But now she's getting wise to it. Like, it's like, no, 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 no. I want to get dressed before you turn on the timer. I'm like, that's not how it works.
Oh my god.
Then you never start the timer because you never get stressed. It kills me.
Well, I mean, that's a really good goal. Yeah, I think that's. I mean, I don't even know how you got to that permutation, but that's a really good one.
Oh, the answer is I tried literally everything else,
Yeah.
different combinations, different. I have her pick them out. I would have them pick out clothes for each other. I'd pick them out the night before. I would have conversations with her about what kind of clothes she would like, so that she was only going to be wearing clothes that she would definitely like, so she'd be more likely to put them on. Listen, tried all of it. It's literally just an evolutionary process. Everything that didn't work, we're not doing anymore.
Well, that's, and I think like you said, because they're getting older, you kind of end up doing less things anyways because they're getting better at it. Hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
because I still have an issue with like getting him dressed, but he knows how to do it. It's just like,
Yeah,
let's do it.
yeah. That's the most frustrating part is once you've seen them do it perfectly and fast, every day that it takes like an hour and a half after that, you're just like, what are you doing to me?
Yeah, I think sometimes it makes worse for me because it's like I know you're doing this on purpose.
Yeah.
Know that you know what you're supposed to do. You just don't want to do it,
Yeah.
and it makes it harder
I
to like,
can
see it.
also kind of sympathize. Like sometimes there's like, I don't know, things I've got to do for work. Like I know this would take 5 minutes and it still takes a couple of days. You're just like,
That's true.
I think there's a certain amount of that reticence still there as well.
It was funny. I'm reading this book, um, The Personal MBA, and a part of it was talking about procrastination, and that procrastination is actually a feature of being human.
Hmm.
Like, okay, it's about preserving your energy for the important things, right? So like yes, this thing has to get done, but can it wait? I can be a little lazy about it, right? Yeah, it's fine. I could, wait until like the very, very last minute to get a thing done because I took care of all the more important things, so I could do that thing. So that's interesting.
I
And
like that.
it makes me feel better.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely puts a very positive spin. Yeah.
Yeah, like okay, I could get with that. Um, so I was wondering what are some of the values, some of the core values that you think that you as a father are trying to impart. I know you mentioned a good diet. You mentioned, I think you didn't necessarily mention directly, but allowing them to be a little bit brave to test their own boundaries and be sure-footed, be sure about themselves. Um, I don't know if you think about it, but I definitely see curiosity. You were mentioning that you like to ask your dad a lot of questions. I see that in your daughters as well. I remember the first time um our kids went on a play date, and I was really like not surprised. I think I really liked how curious they were. I really loved it. Like they're curious about everything. It's like, whoa, wow, that's amazing. And you gave them really good answers as well. Um, so I'm assuming that maybe even if you're not thinking about it in context of it, but curiosity is something that like a core value of yours that you're trying to instill in them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That is, yeah, not a mistake. That's not happening by accident. No, it is. I mean, we live in the world. It's important to be excited about it and curious about it, or you won't know anything about it. Maybe it's maybe it's very philosophical, but like, all we are minds in a body. And if you aren't aware of something, then it's not in your world. So like when they see an interesting bug, cool, let's talk about it. If they're wondering about, why this dirt acts like this and this dirt acts like this, I don't know, let's figure it out. Like just I want them to get the sense that like if they see something new, this is this is something else that we can play with, something else that we can talk about, and it will be fun to discuss it. Um, I get worried when I see a little kid who will like find something new and they'll like bring it to their parents and their parents will be like, leave that alone, it's gross. Like my kids are constantly finding just vile stuff, just bugs and like goo and dirt and mud and just like I don't know. Like they get hurt. I mean, all the time. But if they get like a wound, it's not like a gross thing. It's like, well, let's talk about the blood. Let's talk about how we clean it. Let's talk about band-aids, that sort of thing. And as it doesn't like curiosity isn't just about tricking them into learning. It's making them brave about new things. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I think it will. I think it serves them very well going forward to have the mindset that I can learn new things. Like when you say do it because I told you to, or don't don't worry about that, or don't interact with that. It I, I may be wrong. I'm no child psychologist, but like I don't know. I think that presenting your kids with the idea that everything they see is something that they can interact with and they can understand if they want to is is a powerful lesson, not just for their childhood, but just going forward. Like whenever somebody breaks around the house, I try to pull them in to be like, I got some pictures I could send you. Like for example, I wanted to install a dimmer switch on this light here. And in order to do that, I brought the kids in. I was like, well, there's a lot of electricity in this and it's really dangerous. So the first thing we have to do is go into this fuse box right here and turn off the electricity. And then we double check to make sure the electricity is off. And then we, pull out the light switch. And then we can talk about the wires and how electricity goes in circles. And it would have been 1,000 times faster if I did it by myself because they insisted on doing every step themselves. And they were, you know, enthusiastic about it and they were terrible at it. But I think I think there are a lot of adults who would be nervous about swapping out a light fixture or swapping out, some basic electrical work around the house. And I think that my girls going forward will not have that immediate urge to withdraw. It's not even so much about I don't know. I think curiosity and bravery very much go hand in hand. If that makes sense.
I agree. I totally agree. That that reminds me of I I was one of those parents who's like, I don't really want him to like get too into something just because not nothing is as like dangerous as like changing the light switch, but like he when he was a lot younger, he always wanted to like be in the kitchen when I'm like making breakfast. And like you can't be in here, like it's dangerous. The fire is on and I'm like making eggs and I don't want stuff splashing in. My wife for me, she was the one who told me like it's it's harder and it's going to take a lot longer if he's around, but it's in the long run, it's worth it to have him see what you're doing and also like involve him in it.
Mhm.
And I've since then, this was a while ago, I've since done like, okay, I get him the egg and he'll crack the egg and he'll put it in the pan and we'll watch it and I'll give him the spatula, we flip it together. And you're totally right. I think that experience for him, well, one, it was a really bonding experience, I think. So,
Yeah, yeah,
either. Um, but I think it makes him braver, and he understands like when we flip it, it's dangerous. The grease will like splash. We don't want the grease to
hmm
touch him, and I think he remembers that because sometimes his sister is like in the kitchen and he'll say like, "Oh, the fire is on, Dad. It's dangerous, right? You have to make sure the grease doesn't." So it carries on in the long run. And like you said, he's braver because of it. He's more knowledgeable because of it. I think doing something like that is it's mentally there's like for me there was like a mental barrier between like let him do this. It's
yeah, yeah,
okay, Courtney had they make the cake together. The kitchen was a mess, and I like like I said, my AD like I have to clean the stuff up. Like, you can't have the
yeah,
the flour in between all the crevices. It bothers me, but like it's good for them. It's good for them to do these things. It's a little bit messy, sometimes a little bit dangerous, but I mean, if you know what
yeah,
you're doing, if you're the guiding hand, then it's good for them. It makes them braver. It's
yeah,
totally
yeah.
correct.
And it is an investment. Like literally, just like I don't. They definitely don't get the big ideas, but like just getting some experience with electricity and understanding. So like So I used to work at this kind of flashbang science camp for kids, and we there were all of these these cute little demonstrations and stuff that involved electricity, and it's like 9-volt batteries. Like you couldn't get hurt if you tried. And as soon as you said electricity, like most of the kids would just shut down. They were like, "I won't go anywhere near it. Like it is scary. Electricity's bad. I won't go near it." You'd be like, "But it's fine. Like you couldn't get hurt. I mean, yes, it is electricity, but it won't hurt you. There's no danger. Like you're going to be fine." And just like I began to realize that all of these kids have been raised with electricity bad, electricity dangerous, never interact with it, and so they don't. And so, like with just teaching them that there are safe ways to approach this means now you can, once you know how it is safe, now you can actually explore it on your own. And I think it's a big investment in the future because I'm fairly confident that there's a lesson they can get away with it. I'm fairly confident that now, if and when my girls decide to start playing around with electricity, unlike me when I was a kid, they're going to. Sorry about that. I think if they want to explore around with electricity, they know that it is dangerous, but there is a safe way to do it. And so I think that before they started messing around with electricity, they would find the safe way to do it first, and then start messing around.
Yeah.
My so you were asking about my. This is actually something I definitely got from my father. My one of the best things my father ever did for me, just to train me and my brother with electricity, was at some point he had to swap out the AC, which had air ionizer in it, and an ionizer basically just has a very high voltage, just 10, 20,000 volts, but it's ionizes the dust that comes in, and then once it's ionized, it is attracted to the oppositely charged plate somewhere else. So it does a really good job of pulling the dust out of the air.
Okay.
So he had this extremely high voltage, very low current power source, and he just kind of pulled it out and then gave it to me. And the beauty of it is, if you touch the wrong wires, it hurts a lot, but it doesn't kill you.
Wow.
And so you can play around with it. You can get these like really cool like blue electrical arcs, and it was a lot of fun to play with. And if you messed up, it hurt like crazy, but like it didn't burn, it didn't leave scars, it just left, you know, a lasting impression. But I ended up learning a lot about electricity just playing around with this thing. That like he didn't even give me instructions. He was just like, this makes electricity. Check this out. Like, see what you can do. And yeah, I don't know. I found it a very formative and powerful experience. Just, I don't know. I think I think it feels good as a kid to be introduced to new and adult things like electricity, uh, like knives, like in the kitchen as you're like slicing fruit. I don't want them to use the big ones, but like just a soft fruit like a plum or something like that, and they can use the little knife and I mean, I'm hovering right over them and like constantly like, this is the sharp side, this is the dull side. Always hold the handle, hold it like this. And I don't know, it's a little bit transgressive for them to use a knife to cut fruit, but I think it helps bring them out.
Yeah.
It's respectful. I don't even remember what the original question was.
No worries. I mean, I think, something like that is an important lesson. Another life lesson, right? Like how to use a knife, how to cut a fruit and get what be able to feed yourself, if that.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think when kids are introduced to things that they see adults do, especially things that like they know that maybe they're not typically allowed to do, they
Yeah.
they do feel excited. I don't know if the word is respected, but they do feel some kind of like connective happiness about it. Uh,
Mhm.
I think that's really cool. I really don't know a lot of safe ways to play with electricity, so that's really cool. Maybe we can talk about some of that stuff
Sure.
later, how to do some of that. I actually have electricians in my family. No one's ever talked about any of that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, my grandfather was uh, my father's father was a carpenter and electrician, and my father apprenticed under him. It was because my grandfather was an electrician that my father went into electrical engineering. And he didn't like it, so he went into physics. And now here I am doing physics too. So it's actually pretty direct carry through. The electrical work that I'm doing with my girls is pretty directly traces from their great grandfather.
Oh, that's amazing. Do they know that?
You know, I haven't gotten.
Maybe a little too complicated for now, but that's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I don't think I have anything that like lineates like that, but that's pretty cool. It's awesome that they have that. Um, we mentioned before about you buying groceries and it being mostly vegetables or like healthy things. And I remember when we went on our first play date with the kids and it was snack time and you took out a carrot, like a carrot stick, and you just gave it to them and they were eating it. And I was like, what's is that a is that a they're just gonna eat it like that? You're like, yeah, they just eat the carrots. And I was like, what kind of voodoo? What kind of how did you do this? Like, how did you get your kids to just eat raw vegetables like unfront like no like nothing. Like you have to put any like special ketchup or anything on it. You didn't have to coerce them into it. You didn't have to say, oh, you eat this and then you'll get this later. It was like you just handed them, they ate it. I was like, what?
Well, it's like you say. Um, kids are born in all kinds of crazy environments. If they were born in China, they'd be eating Chinese food. If they were born in India, they'd be eating Indian food. Um, so they're just going to get used to eating the food as all kids do. So I don't know, I just make sure that I'm eating the same thing they're eating. So like, I'll when I walk in and offer them some food, if they don't eat it, I eat it right in front of them.
Ah,
Uh, carrots are pretty good of all the options. I haven't been able to sell them on cauliflower, for example, but carrots. Also, they can carry it and eat it while they're playing. So there's that.
that's a good one. And I think you just sparked an idea in me. Maybe the vegetable I'm introducing isn't the one because I'm gung ho about broccoli, and maybe broccoli isn't the thing he's gonna connect with. Maybe it's a carrot, maybe it's a beet,
Yeah,
maybe it's a cauliflower, which is very similar but not the same thing.
you're trying a lot of permutations. Like uh, 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 for some reason they very much prefer like a carrot that looks like a carrot, and they kind of are not into baby carrots.
Oh,
Um, broccoli, I've tried selling them on like raw broccoli with hummus. They hate it. I've tried the frozen broccoli florets and like reheat them. They're not into it. But if I get a fresh thing of broccoli and steam it in exactly the right way, they're all for it. Like it's just trial things, and eventually something works or nothing works. And
yeah. That's another thing, texture, right? Like AJ is just telling us about texture. So it's like, now I gotta think how stiff or how firm this broccoli is. Or I have to think about how the chicken is made. Like, is it, you know, stringy
oh
because
god,
it's boneless breasts, or is it like, whatever
yeah,
thighs or something? It's like, yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. Texture is no joke. Like the spaghetti has to be al dente, but not too al dente. The broccoli needs to be never frozen, steamed a certain amount, not so steamed that it falls apart. It still has to have a little bit of snap to it. The grits and eggs, if they're running, I may as well just, if they're running, I may as well just throw it away. Like yeah,
But it makes sense. It's a new person who's learning what they like, and you're also learning what they like at the same time. So I guess they're both going through the journey. But that's
Yeah. The unfortunate truth is that junk food, by and large, is perfect every time.
sadly, right? That's true. That's very true. Like it's just right, however they do it. Wow. Yeah. Are there any other like major core values you're instilling in your kids, or anything you could think of, like major ones?
Be nice to people. That's a big one. Apparently, it's not obvious. They it's uh, uh, uh yeah, it's a lot of like do unto others sort of thing. Like my older one will get very upset because like she's imagined that this toy is a lion, and then her little sister comes along and goes, actually that's a dinosaur, and she just comes screaming to me. She's like, she said it was a dinosaur, but I want it to be a lion. And I was like, you're disagreeing. That's fine. You don't have to be upset about this. Like, is it okay for it to be a lion today and not a dinosaur? And she's like, yeah, that's what I want. I'm like, okay, but would it be okay for PJ to scream at you about how it's not a dinosaur? She's like, no. I'm like, cool, cool, right? Yes. It's not all right for you to scream at her then, don't you see? And usually it doesn't work. But we're
I was gonna say that sounds a bit complicated.
yeah, I mean it's very much like it's very much just like going through like put yourself in your shoes. If you did exactly what she's doing, would you be upset? Like, is it okay? Is it okay for her to do this thing to you? No. Is it okay for you to do exactly the same thing to her? I guess not. That sort of thing. And then you do have to wait for them to calm down because in the moment, nothing is going to be getting through. But,
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, I don't know. Be curious, be brave, um, be nice to people. As far as food goes, the I don't usually say bad for you or good for you. I usually say real food and I guess not real food. Like basically, I don't say like ice cream is bad for you. I try to say ice cream doesn't. It just fills you up so that you don't have room for actual food. That sort of thing.
Interesting language. Hmm. Hmm.
Because I don't know if it's not. I try to reserve like words like this is bad or this is dangerous for when it is genuinely bad or genuinely dangerous. Just so that the words carry some weight and so that they're not like equating like um, being electrocuted to eating candy. Like one is bad, one doesn't. One just takes up room in your stomach, basically.
Yeah, that's good. That makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to think of AJ's been using, what does he say? He says this is good for your body. Like he'll say this is good for like well, I forgot he was asking about something like, oh, it wasn't good for your body, but I was like, sure.
It's it's amazing how many terms they bring home from school. Like, um, does AJ ever talk about bucket fillers and bucket spilling?
No, what is that? Bucket fills.
Like, so somebody when somebody fills your bucket, they're doing something nice for you. When somebody spills your bucket, they're making you upset.
Ah,
Ask him about. I'm sure they've instilled the same thing in him.
now that you mentioned, I think I might have heard of fill my bucket. I think I've heard of spilling, but I think I've heard. I probably didn't know what he was talking about. Like
Yeah,
bucket.
yeah. Like they had to explain it to me because at some point the older one came running into the room, and she's like, my sister spilled my bucket, and I was like, oh, where? Like what was in it and where is it? And she's like, in the kitchen. And I run into the kitchen and everything's dry. And I'm like, where's the bucket? What got spilled? She's like, she called me a name. And I was like, okay,
What?
I'll just ask the next time I see your teachers. There's some.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the first time I heard she spilled my bucket, I was just like, this is an emergency. Like, she was clearly pretty excited that I was so panicked about the bucket.
Like you really cares? Oh my goodness. No, I can't recall a spilling of a bucket. But I do recall every now and then, oh, this filled my bucket. Huh. I didn't, and sometimes for me it's like I don't know what comes from school or what just comes from like other.
Mhm.
So it's like he's like
Yeah.
sometime he'll introduce a new Spanish word to me, like or sign language. And like, is that from school? Is that from your friends? Is that from TV? Like,
Mhm.
where are we learning this from? And sometimes I'll ask him, he'll tell me, and sometimes he's like, oh, I don't know. I just know it. Okay.
Yeah, I remember when the older one was 3, I think she came home and I had a bunch of like little animal. I mean, you go to a birthday, you come home with those goodie bags, and pretty soon your whole house is filled up with those tiny little animal toys. And I kind of I was entered I convinced myself that I was teaching her by going through the animals and just kind of like, what's this one? What sound does this one make? She was she knew it. She knew every animal. She was just like, Dada, do you really not know the sound that a lion makes? And I remember the moment it hit me, I held up a camel and I was like, what's this? And she said, that's a dromedary. And I was like, this is a camel. She's like, Dada, a dromedary is a camel with one hump. I was like, oh wow.
Wow.
What's a camel with 2 humps? She's like, a Bactrian. I'm like, I have nothing left to teach you.
That's this lesson.
Yeah, it has begun. They're officially starting to be smarter than me. It happened so much sooner than I thought.
Well, what a dromedary. We've only got a couple of questions left. Just
Sure.
wanted to know, I guess what for you is the most challenging part of fatherhood?
The most challenging part, the paperwork,
Paperwork.
keeping up. Yeah, the paperwork, the deadlines, just kind of keeping up with the like as far as like taking care of them. I do it all the time. I'm the primary caregiver for both of them.
Yeah.
So I'm around them all the time. Like at this point, it's just kind of rote. I know I've gotten good at the tricks to get them to eat something. I know how to talk with them and calm them down and get them to the park and do all the things you got to do. The hardest part, yeah, um, paperwork and staying calm. I suppose. Yeah, finding my chill as two people who've been really good at being shockingly loud are just absolutely melting down and have like it is I don't know, when you have two children screaming about how they hate you at the top of their lungs for like a couple of hours, it is trying. It
Yeah.
um, so I think maintaining your cool in a situation like that is a challenge, and just kind of you hope it will end soon, but also there's a real good chance that it will just kind of keep going. Um, oh, so as the primary, I get it is my job to boss them around all the time and tell them what to do, and like you know that's the job, and like it's hard when you have just been like I can see it from their perspective. Like they're just trying to mind their own business and be covered in dirt and eat ice cream. And like, what's the problem? And like honestly, yeah, what's the problem? Like when you're telling them like, well, no, you can't have any more ice cream, or uh, you've already watched the TV. The fact that you are completely losing, blowing your top right now is kind of an indication that we need to turn off the TV because like this is too much.
Yeah.
When you're just bossing them around and telling them to do these arbitrary things, like I can see how it comes across as cruel and mean spirited, even though you're doing it in their best interest. It is hard to convey that it is in their best interest. So we're we're coming out of it now. Like 6 months or so ago, the older one, it's funny now. It was a little funny at the time. She got really into numbers, and like on this blackboard back here, she would write a one, and then she'd write a zero. I'm like, how much is that? And be like 10. Like another zero. I'm like, how much is that? 100. And she gets up to like 20 or 30 zeros, and I'm like opening up Google. I'm like, that is a million. And so she got really into numbers, and she was like, Daddy, I love Mama. Infinity Googleplex times a billion zillion times infinity Googleplex times 1,000. That's how much I love Mommy. I'm like, that's great. And she looks me dead in the eye and she goes, Daddy, I love you one. Like, oh.
That's what you get from being the primary parent.
Well, and then like the next day it was just like I hate you and I love Mama and like I hate you, and it was like a couple of months of just I hate you, and that was rough. I would say that was worse than paperwork. But
Yeah.
like, and I also know that if I like make a big deal about it and like, don't you think you should love me? Like, that's not going to go well. That's just going to. She has found a button and she's going to push that button. So it was just like, all right, I guess I'll just be nice to her while she talks about how much she hates me. I guess this will be good training for her teenage years. And
She'll be
um,
first.
yeah. Uh, so yeah,
Like listen to all the work you do, and they never know. They're not gonna see it for a long time, but it hurts.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this is why I call up my parents and apologize to them from time to time, because like they have no idea the amount of work and effort involved in it. Like they've just been dropped into reality. In reality, things happen for you. The food shows up. Things are clean. Like your parents take care of you. That's just how it is. Like um, that for them, that is just kind of the way things are, as opposed to the way it is for us, which is a monumental effort. So I think just because it's their perspective, they kind of can't appreciate it,
Yeah.
and it would be unfair to force them to appreciate it, or even go out of your way to convey that you know convey how much of an effort it is, because you don't want to make them feel bad about it.
I feel like
But anyway,
he still wouldn't understand either way. Okay.
yeah,
What is money?
yeah,
What are you talking about? you know?
yeah. Their concept of work, I would be I would be I would be fascinated to know what they think work is, because
Yeah.
like so Lauren's a psychiatrist, so they know that she is a doctor for people's brains, and like I don't know what they think that means. Like is she like cutting open people's brains, or is she just like talking to them to make them feel better? And like the only thing they know about my work is I go to a laser lab, and so like I teach students just like you have teachers. I'm a teacher. They're like, yeah. But what about the laser lab? And then when I go to
You got everything else.
so yeah, yeah, I have no idea. Every once in a while I get a little glimpse into how they see the universe, and it's really what I was expecting.
Yeah. That's always very interesting. Like we kind of know too much about our little box, but like when you speak to, a child, and even if you tell them something that's going on, like their perspective is totally different because they're like, it could be anything. What is that? And it's like, oh, yeah, I never thought.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, like were you were you in town for the eclipse? Did you
Yeah,
go to
yeah,
the?
I was on the rooftop. Yeah.
Okay, so what it kind of blew my mind that like there's an eclipse happening. Like the sun is disappearing behind a disk. It's turning into this crescent. Like that's like it's a beautiful kind of crazy experience. And the kids like I saw a bunch of them like a helicopter flew by and like half of them were like helicopter and I was like, you know what? Fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
A helicopter is a machine that's just flying through the air. Like honestly, yeah, that's pretty crazy. Like the sun is also crazy, but then there's like birds. Like there's
Yeah.
lots of crazy stuff in the world. Like where,
Yeah.
yeah, like their set point is not the same as ours.
Yeah, yeah. I always find that interesting. Um, for you, what have I'm sure the answer is yes, but how have you found fatherhood to be like enriching to your life, or maybe you as a person, you're you as a person, even.
Um, how's it enriching? Well, um, there's a, I mean, it's not a short list. There's so here's a thought that I'm probably read on a Hallmark card. Love is love is a practice as opposed to a feeling. And when you have kids, you practice it a lot. And so I found that just having kids and just like maintaining my cool and um just just practicing love, it actually it has found its way into my other relationships with other people. It's changed how I interact with coworkers and students and kids actually. Like I was like freaked out by other people's children before I had my own. Like I just didn't know how to interact with them.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a common thing.
yeah, like just like coming from a place of love is not something I was good at, and I feel like I'm getting better at it because I practice it with my kids all the time. They they almost everybody that we interact with on a day to day is very polite. So if you have personality quirks like you know being irritable, for example, most people will let it basically everybody will let it slide, and so it's kind of like having something in your teeth. Like nobody will point it out to you, but your kids will. Um, so, uh, so it in a completely selfish way. It is they very much hold up a mirror to you and like uh, I mean emotionally they're little raw wounds. Like you begin to realize all the wonderful things that you do that may hurt the people around you, sort of thing, and you can't, or at least you become far more aware of them.
Yeah, I totally know what you're talking about.
Yeah. As far as I don't know, I hear a lot of people talk about when you have kids, you see the world anew and you appreciate things. But I don't mean to be a jerk, but I was kind of doing that already. So that's what I am excited about is introducing them to doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're doing a really good job, and I think kids, because they're coming from a place of like not knowing anything, they're naturally curious, and being able to put water on that and helping it grow.
Hmm.
I think you're doing it
Yeah,
well.
yeah. They. I hope so. When I worked at that science camp, I was working with kids from the ages of like fourth grade at the youngest up to like high school. And what I noticed overwhelmingly was that the a very large majority of the kids that were coming through, the curiosity had been kind of burned out of them. Like they didn't ask questions. They didn't want to explore on their own. yeah, I feel like it is the urge to explore and be curious is present, but it is absolutely possible to lose it. Um, so yeah, that is part of what has informed me trying to make them curious is seeing that it is something that can be lost, and it's something a lot of people lose. Uh,
Yeah.
so I worry.
Yeah, I've never seen a lot of adults as well, like, you know, all around, just
Mhm.
curiosity for life and curiosity for like learning new things. It's definitely something that maybe they've lost a long time ago, but yeah, very, very interesting. Um,
Yeah,
very
that
important
is
as
that is
well.
actually that is something I noticed a lot about. So I'm not originally from New York, but when I first moved out here, it was something that one of the things that really stunned me about people who live in New York is just like the visceral fear of anything natural, like birds creep people out, bugs creep them out. Just like the idea of going backpacking is so absolutely incomprehensible. Like not understanding why anybody would want to, you know, why would you want to interact with nature? Why would you want to, don't you basically don't you know that the world is horrible? Like why would you want to learn about it?
It's still like even my wife, who was like, sometimes they're like, "Hey, we can go hiking." It's like hiking with the bugs and the heat. Yeah, that's what's out there. I think that sounds cool. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. That's not. That doesn't sound fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely a subset of people where it's like, and I don't know, maybe I also don't really get it. I mean, I fear a cockroach or a beetle or whatever crawling into my ear, but
Hmm.
that's kind of an illogical fear. Like it doesn't happen very often. It's not really a thing, but it's
Yeah.
just a fear. And I'm sure maybe that's a part of it. I don't know, but yeah, they definitely there's definitely like a big part of New York City where it's like we want to stay here in the AC inside the nice buildings and like do recreational things that have nothing to do with nature, but still
Hmm.
feel like it's a part of nature in some way. It's a really weird thing. Yeah.
I
Um.
can get behind the staying inside with the AC though. That I can get behind that.
Well, yeah. I mean, definitely don't like a heat wave for sure.
Hmm.
You got to get out there and let the sun touch your skin somehow.
Yeah.
Some vitamin D. Yeah, I think that's also important. You know, to not just be in the a conditioned space all the time. Like what is the physical world really like?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Exactly.
yeah, it's a pretty good answer. Do you? I mean, from all of your experience, do you recommend fatherhood for men or for the people?
Um. No. I mean, everybody's got their own thing. I wouldn't really recommend anything for anybody. I mean, everybody's got. Some people want to be fathers, some people don't. That's kind of where we've been historically forever. Um. Uh. I don't know. Yeah, I would say that it is not for me to judge or to recommend.
Hmm. That's a good answer. I can get behind that. Um, again,
I certainly I certainly I'm glad I became a father. Uh, and that is literally the extent that I can answer that question.
yeah, what's for you isn't necessarily for anybody else, right? And they have to decide
Yeah.
what they're willing to do or willing to put up with. Because I do agree that like being a parent, specifically a father, changes your life in such a drastic way, especially if you want to be a present father. And I know you're a primary parent, which ups the game a lot. um, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work and a lot of, like even what you were saying, like facing your own stuff a lot of the times. And it's hard work. And it sucks sometimes, especially when, it's not feeling like they care about that. What they shouldn't, but it would be nice.
Mhm.
You feel like it's rewarding, but it has its own versions of reward. Um, what for you? What would be what's the most rewarding part of being a father?
Um, uh, I mean, I don't know if this is the most. I don't know how I can phrase this without it sounding like a tautology. The most rewarding part of fatherhood is, um, for me, the creation of two new people who are very nice, uh, and make the world a better place. The point of fatherhood is not for it to be rewarding for me. The point of it is to be rewarding for them.
You sound very scientific, but okay. I
Like,
get that makes sense.
yeah, uh, uh, yeah. What's the big payout? I don't know. I'll probably be dead by then. Like, they're
You don't like the
they're never
hugs?
gonna.
The hugs don't make you feel good, man.
No, I mean, I certainly appreciate it, but like the big payout is they exist, and hopefully they'll live a good life.
That's true. That makes sense. And it's a good ideology to keep the um we're trying to phrase it, to not make it all about you, right? Because in the same way, like it's being a father is hard or being a parent is hard, it's mostly because there's a lot of like id involved. There's a lot of you and I and how I feel and what I want and what I can't do and what I should be doing. And once you take the focus off of that and it's just about the children growing up to be good, loving people, then all the hard stuff feels a little less hard.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Yeah. It goes hand in hand with the, I'm sorry, I had to
Oh,
take these. I hope the sound quality hasn't dropped on you, but yeah, it kind of, it goes hand in hand with like, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Like this isn't for me. This like, like how do I, how do I run around and chase the kids? My knees hurt. That's fine.
run myself to the ground. That's how.
Yeah, like this, they are incredibly expensive. They are a spectacular amount of work. There is no earthly reason for myself to do this. It is, I consider it to be like the hugs are nice. It does feel good, but like it is a massive net loss for me as a person. And like, but it is a massive net, it is a bigger net gain for them to have not just a good life, but to exist at all is, I think, a net plus for them.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get that. That's you know, yeah, and I think speaking of net loss, it's very important to not you know count the pennies and the dollars because it can it can create
This,
some kind of upset for sure.
yeah, yeah. This is yeah, it is not an investment that will pay off for me. It's
Yeah,
just it is it's fatherhood is not it's for them. I mean that's it.
yeah, yeah. And if I think it's important for anybody who is thinking about it, or you have to be very okay with all of that. Like the downsides have to be okay, not necessarily worth it, because like you're saying, worth it is a very self-conscious thing, and worth it is about you. But
Yeah. So
with it.
that's a really good way to put it. In terms of, is it worth it? For me, no. But on net, like in terms of me plus them, is it worth it? Yeah, I think so. It massively is.
Yeah. Do you have any advice? I guess it's a two-part. Do you have any advice for anyone who's a father to be, expecting father, thinking about being a father, or maybe for yourself when you just became a father? Something you know now that you didn't know back then.
It acknowledge first that it is hard. It is a lot of work. And you are built for it. Like there's a lot of basic biology and basic psychology like wired into us that makes a lot of it easier than you'd think. I remember after my oldest was born, uh, I was really worried about how to make her comfortable to sleep. And I'm gonna get myself choked up here. I was really having a hard time getting her comfortable to sleep. So I was like, well, I need to have, enough noise to drown out the sounds of traffic outside. And it needs to be, the right amount of dark, not so dark it's scary, but not so bright it keeps her awake. And I was all concerned about all these little things to, to twiddle and figure out to make sure that she could sleep comfortably. And she just didn't. Like she was just screaming and she was upset. She just wasn't sleeping. And so I'd go in and I would sing her songs and I would try to find ways to get her to sleep. And she was like maybe a month old. And I picked her up and she was crying and then she calmed down and then she just kind of fell asleep on my shoulder. And I remember thinking, oh, okay. Like, I'm supposed to be here. This is just how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my advice. Like, it is insanely hard. It is a huge amount of work. It is, even if they say thank you, it won't be enough. Um, it is, you are absolutely paying it forward and you will not be paid back. And you're supposed to be there.
That's powerful. Yeah, that's very true. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this one to say it anyways. I think my wife and I, the couples that we connect the most, or the families that we connect the most with, are the people that kind of like share that value of like being there, you know. Um, and I know you and your wife, you both work in your professionals and you have a full-time career, but you prioritize, I should say, your children and making sure that somebody is there. Like I said, you're the primary parent, but making sure that there's somebody there. And I think those, not to say that I don't want to pass any judgment on any other families and how they decide to do it, because we all are doing the best we can and doing what we have to do or doing what we think is best, right? Like there's no book for this.
I think there are at least tens of thousands of books.
One of the things that Courtney and I really connect on, the parents that we connect with the most are the ones who have that value of like spending the time with their kids and not outsourcing it. Because it's important. It's important to spend that time to have those values. And like I was saying, like I understand that we're all doing the best we can or doing the thing that we believe is the correct thing to do or parenting whichever way makes the most sense for us. And we've sacrificed, like Courtney's no longer working. She hasn't worked since Aiden was born. And
Mhm.
it's really, really hard doing it that way. And not net positive at all. in no way, shape, or form. But it's important. It's it's that the work of being there. It's probably the most important because everything else kind of falls on it. Like, are you even there to do all these things? If not, then
Yeah.
you don't even know what they're learning. You believe you do, but you don't really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you for that. I think that's a very, very important lesson to hold on to think about. Especially if you can. I definitely know that not everybody can, but if you can, or do it as much as you can, you know.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I know 2 kids, you're a busy man. Professor.
Well, they're at the school today. This is
Okay. But thank you. I think this is great. This is a great. I think it turned out really well, and thank you so much.
I think so. Yeah.
And thank you
Thank
for first. You're the first interviewee.